Hello, everybody. I'm hoping everybody had a wonderful Christmas. And by the time you probably watch this episode of the Top 5 Weekly, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Andrew. Happy New Year, Billy. Steven. Billy. Had a friend of mine, Billy, on the
Billy Madison.
a friend, Billy Pollahan, who's been on one of our shows. I had him on my mind, so I meant Happy New Year's, Steven. How could I do that to you, Steven?
It's not like I haven't been on here every freaking time.
Oh man! But we had Fences come out on Christmas Day last Sunday, and so in honor of Fences this week, we're gonna discuss probably, I would say, one of the top 10 actors in Hollywood today, maybe top 5. We're going to discuss. So we're going to talk about Denzel Washington, but let's introduce my panelists here, starting with Andrew.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be back. I'd like to thank Dan for having me on once again for a countless time I can't remember, and for Steven for putting up with all of my lists that he doesn't agree with.
This is a little.
Okay, well, look, Andrew, I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, I got killed for that Christmas list.
Okay, that was one list.
That's true.
I think most of the time you have a lot more classic stuff knowledge. I am a little bit more modern day. We clash sometimes, but not really a lot. I think we got a balance. But
it's a good.
I'm not Steven. I'm Billy Madison. This episode apparently. So
Billy from
not Billy Madison. You're Steven.
Billy.
You're Stephen Billings, the famous Stephen Billings, who does it all over at the Film Club Movie Channel. This guy, if you haven't been over there to check that out, please do. This guy is kicking ASS over there.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Had to give you a little plug. I watched their latest episode earlier today. All right, so let's get into it. Top 5 weeklies, Denzel Washington films. Wow, we finally get one of the heavyweights, and we're gonna really dig into Denzel this week. Andrew, start with number 5.
I will start with my number 5. I'm gonna go with a film I watched recently, and it's mostly to do because his performance is, I think, so fantastic in it, and that is the film The Hurricane, directed by Norman Jewison, came out 1999, and he plays the boxer Reuben Hurricane Carter. And I remember Dan talked about this film way back, I think, in our first ever show when we talked about boxing movies. And it's a really, really very good performance by Denzel. It is about someone who was framed for murder. It's based on a true story. And it turns out that he was framed due to certain racial issues and things of that nature, and a lot of corruption when it came to police and things like that. And I'll say this: the performance is kind of outshines the movie. The movie is not bad at all. It's a good movie. I feel it's kind of by the numbers a little bit, but his performance is outstanding, and you come to expect that from Denzel.
Yeah, we might get into the Hurricane a little bit more later. But Steven, what is your number 5 Denzel Washington film? Are you going to show your Blu-rays? Are you going to brag by showing us your Blu-rays?
Well, I could, but I didn't have time to get them together. So my number 5 is, real quick, if we're gonna brag, Andrew would beat me by far, but he doesn't do it.
Yeah, I don't do it because I don't want to brag.
Yeah, well, I only have so much to brag about.
Okay.
I only have so many Blu-rays I can show. So, but my number 5 is a movie that I don't know if it's not one of my favorite of his films per se. I think there is some issues in the movie, but it's still kind of a classic movie. And this is more for his performance than anything, and that is Glory. The film's about the first group of all black soldiers in the Civil War, and Denzel plays one of the soldiers. You got Morgan Freeman in there and Matthew Broderick, and it's it's a very powerful film at times. I don't know if I agree with some of the casting. Matthew Broderick's kind of weird, it's kind of a weird role, but his performance in that movie is so powerful, and Denzel is the master of the one tear going down the cheek. He does that better than anybody, and yeah, he's just got some really great scenes. And if anything, check out the movie just for his performance.
Yeah, he won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Glory. That's his first Oscar he ever won, and should have won more than 2, I think, in his career. But it's kind of like a political thing sometimes. But all right, mine is I got Remember the Titans at number 5. We won't get into, some people on the panel aren't that big of football fans. Other people are, but Denzel plays a coach of a football team where the school that he coaches for is integrated into a white school. And the name of the coach is, let me see here, Herman Boone. He plays Herman Boone. This film is directed by Baz Yakin. Sounds like a Star Wars character, Bose Yakin. And it came out in 2000. And Will Patton plays the other coach. And for whatever reason, he ends up being the assistant coach, and Denzel ends up being the head coach. And they're trying to integrate black players and white players in this kind of area in Virginia where they hadn't done this before. And there's some drama here. That's what makes Remember the Titans such a great film, is the drama between the black players and the white players. And there's Ryan Gosling plays a quarterback in the film. This is one of his earlier roles that he was in. I forgot Ryan Gosling was in the film, and then I realized, oh wait, he's the quarterback in the film. Also, I live in a town where there was a high school that was integrated into one high school. There was a black high school, and they integrated it into a white high school. So it is a tough situation for families and how they deal with it. And Herman Boone, the character in the film, really has his hands full, but Denzel Washington, like he always does, just kills it. And whether he's a football coach or a boxer or whatever he plays, the guy just is phenomenal. And before the show started, I said, this is easily one of the top 10 actors in Hollywood, top 5 right now. Maybe one of the top 10 of all time. I mean, I know that's kind of pushing it, but I mean, Denzel's body of work is ridiculous. His filmography. That's why this is such a hard top 5 to do, because he's got so many great films. So, all right, let's go with Andrew. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is the film I actually watched last night for the first time at the request of Steven, and that is Crimson Tide, directed by the late Tony Scott, starring Gene Hackman, of course, Denzel Washington, and it is a film about Gene Hackman's character is a captain of a nuclear submarine, and Denzel Washington is a new addition to his crew. He is the new XO, and they kind of have this battle of wills. They butt heads constantly, and the entire film, or at least about 90% of the film, takes place inside of this nuclear submarine. So it's very tense. It's very claustrophobic. It's really very, very good. It's extremely well acted. Gene Hackman is another one of those all-time great actors, I think, that are still fortunately with us, and he really showing his greatness, and as well as Denzel, who's able to go toe-to-toe with Gene Hackman in every scene they are in together. And it's a really good film, and it's really a shame that Tony Scott is no longer with us, because I felt like he was a very, very good director in his own right. I really liked his unique stylization, and I really did enjoy his films, and he worked a lot with Denzel Washington. That's an actor and director pairing that not a lot of people talk about, and they were in, and they did a lot of films together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I didn't know I didn't know if you were gonna say that or not. They have a heck of a group of films, Tony Scott and Denzel Washington. You're right. I mean, it's probably the best. I would say next to Das Boot, that's probably the next best submarine movie of all time. I mean, there's not a lot of them, but that's probably the second best, arguably the best. If you talk to some people, I kind of like Das Boot. That's just my opinion, but it is. Gene Hackman. Oh God, the guy's phenomenal. He just decided to give up acting. I mean, he just said, you know what? I'm finished. I did as many films as I wanted to do. But we're talking about Denzel Washington. So, Steven, what is your number 4 Denzel Washington film?
Well, this is just for you, Dan. It's Training Day. Training Day. It's an interesting one. I like the movie. Now Denzel wins his Best Acting award for this movie. Not a lot of people agree with that. I think he's very good in the movie, but it is a very much a straightforward Denzel being badass Denzel in this movie. So I could see where maybe some people, would disagree with the fact that he won. Out of all the badass roles he's played, this is his most villainous. And he, as he says, King Kong doesn't have shit on him, which is my favorite line from the movie. And it's a very simple story. David Ayer actually wrote this movie. It's very typical him about dirty cops and drugs. You got Ethan Hawke in there. That's the protagonist playing off of him. And it's Denzel, like a fangs. He's really very villainous in this film, and the ending is very, very gratifying. In a not so good for Denzel way, but it's a good performance. I don't know if he should have won Best Actor for it, but I think that Academy was giving him the award because he missed out on it probably so many times before when he should have won, like The Hurricane or something else like that, But it's still a very fun movie. You should probably check it out.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk more about Training Day before this episode of the Top 5 Weekly is over. And I have some more things to say about what you just said there, Steven, but we'll hold off till a little bit later. My number 4 is The Hurricane. I know I put The Hurricane on my top 5 boxing films list back when we first started the Top 5 Weekly, and I could have put 5 completely separate Denzel Washington films, but I love this film so much that I had to. I mean, you can't, in my opinion, it's just me. It's my list. I had to have The Hurricane on here, and I'm a big fan of boxing, and also I'm a big fan of Denzel Washington. So I had to have The Hurricane on here. The scene where he's losing his mind in the prison. I talked a little bit about this on the boxing episode, the very first episode. The reason why he didn't win the Oscar, quote unquote, or why people thought he didn't deserve to win or be nominated is that scene wasn't real. But I think if you're in prison, obviously nobody was in prison with him. He wrote a book about what happened to him. I think you go mad in prison. I mean, I don't know anybody that was in prison, but
I was in prison, Dan.
Yeah.
Sorry for telling you now.
All right. Well, being in the drunk tank ain't prison.
Oh, okay. That's just jail. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think that scene was such a powerful scene because he's talking to himself. He's got demons in his head and he's arguing with himself. And that, to me, those scenes were some of the most powerful scenes in the movie, quote unquote. They didn't happen in actuality. Norman Jewison does a great job of going from the past with Denzel and to the future with Liev Schreiber and Derek Luke. But Dan Hedaya, a lot of people don't know Dan Hedaya. This guy's had a lot of small roles in films and TV shows and stuff like that. He's a funny guy, but he plays a nasty called Della Pesca, Detective Lieutenant Della Pesca, and he has it out for Reuben Hurricane Carter in this film, and that's really the kind of the meat of what makes this story work because by the end of it, the movie came out 16 years ago. So I'm not really spoiling anything that he was railroaded by this cop. This cop didn't like him from the very beginning. And of course, he gets off. Even Bob Dylan sang a song about it. I mean, it's a very famous song, about Rumor Hurricane Carter. Very good song, I might add, too. So, yeah, I had the Hurricane at number 4 on this list. So, all right, now we're going to go into everybody on the panel already saw Fences. So, just kind of go into a discussion on what your thoughts about Fences are, Andrew.
Okay. As I was discussing with Steven previously, I think the film is extraordinarily well acted. I think I called it a clinic of acting because Denzel and Viola Davis really give two of their perhaps best performances ever. Definitely Viola Davis, who was toe-to-toe with him. She was just astonishingly good. The main hindrance I have with the film, I think I've been seeing this with a lot of reviews and with a lot of people, is that it is essentially the play put into a movie. It feels like a play. It's kind of shot like a play, and it really kind of isn't as cinematic as you would want a film to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is from the source material that is a play. So it feels kind of very boxed in. It feels very almost like in segments. Like each sequence feels like it's different from another sequence. And like I was telling Steven, there's a lot that they mention that happens off screen that you don't get to see, and a lot of that is important to the plot, specifically as the film progresses. But I'll still say this: I will not be surprised if both Denzel and Viola Davis get nominated for various awards this season, probably Oscars.
Steven?
Yeah, I have very much the same feelings as Andrew. Just two of the best performances of the year, and even I can't ever remember his name, but the guy that plays Bubba in Forrest Gump, he's actually very good too.
Michael T. Williamson.
Okay, and yeah, he's very good. The son, the kid that plays the son, very good too. And Denzel's directing is fine, but like he said, like Andrew said, there's not a lot going on in the movie, and it very much is almost just very easy shots. There's not much going on to do very much stylistically with the movie. I might have, we could have maybe left the confines of the yard at least a couple of times in the movie, and we could have, except for the very beginning of the movie where you get the garbage truck scene. You're not leaving basically that block, the whole movie. And it's, so that's that. And that's about all you can say bad about it. I mean, it's, and like you said, it doesn't really translate to film and give you something new. It just gives you the play. So them are kind of the downfalls, but, other than that, can't really say nothing really bad about it. It's not going to be a movie that everybody's going to enjoy because it's a very dialogue-driven film. If you're not into a lot of dialogue, and I compared it to Steve Jobs from last year, where it's very much like a play, and it's in a 3-act structure basically, and a lot of dialogue. And if you're not into that, you might not enjoy it. But Denzel can carry a movie, and Viola Davis, they can carry a movie very easily, and you'll stay so enthralled in their characters because their characters are so interesting. So you might want to give it a chance, but it might not be for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said a lot about it, but I think the term you're basically trying to find here is set-based, where it was set in the backyard, in the house, on the front porch, and those 3 places are the main 3 places in the entire movie. And when you first sit down in the very first scene of the movie, Denzel Washington has a monologue that is ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous how long he goes on. And he's directing the film, but he's reading these lines. He's saying these lines like you believe this is coming out of this man's mouth. That that he's not acting. You believe the guy is real. He's actually right there, and he's saying this stuff in that time period in that place. I mean, it took me a little while to figure out where they were, but they were in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he definitely. I mean, I'd be completely shocked if Denzel Washington does not get a Best Actor nomination for this role. And this is, a lot of times you see people have like movies on their top 10 or movies that they consider some of the best of the year, not because the movie is that great, but the acting in the portrayal of the characters in the movie is so good they can't leave it off their lists. And that's what you have with Fences. I mean, anchor. You want to talk about an anchor? Denzel and Viola Davis anchor this film down, and you couldn't get up if you tried from the theater. These two are two absolute heavyweights going mano a mano against each other, with him doing a blow, then she's got a blow. I mean, I think Viola Davis is going to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. And it's a shame. I think Denzel probably would have gotten his second Oscar this year if it wasn't for Casey Affleck, in my opinion, who gives the best performance of the year. But Denzel, oh, wow. Fantastic performance. And Russell Hornby as his son who's coming over the house looking for money, really good. I never even heard of Russell Hornby before. Guy was fantastic. He had some really good dialogue as well. And you said Michael T. Williamson as is kind of like his son.
Brother, Denzel's brother.
His brother. That's right, his brother, who's got like a learning disability. Yeah, Fences is a must-see for everybody. I don't care if you don't like a lot of dialogue. You got to see this film. You got to put this on your list of films to see. We're talking about another list here. Denzel Washington's top 5 films, and we are on to number 3, and that means, Andrew, it's your turn to do number 3.
My number 3 is Malcolm X, directed by Spike Lee, came out in 1992. This is the biopic of the civil rights leader Malcolm X. Malcolm X was kind of very much the foil to Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Tragically, they both ended up being assassinated. And Denzel and Spike Lee worked a lot together, specifically when Denzel was first starting. He was in several Spike Lee movies and things of that nature. And it is a really powerful performance because the character that he was portraying was a really powerful guy. He was a very powerful speaker. And this film really goes from the time where before he became Malcolm X, before he had converted to Islam, all the way up until his death. So it is a rather lengthy film, and it covers a lot of ground. And Denzel gives just a fantastic performance. It's one of those performances where you're kind of surprised looking back on it that it didn't win him an Oscar because it's so iconic. I think you see it all the time in his highlight reel for his career. I think he received I forgot which awards. I don't know if it was Golden Globe or Oscar, or he received the Lifetime Achievement Award or something like that. And they always show clips from Malcolm X, of course. And it is my number 3. It's a film I haven't seen in years, so that's probably why it's not much higher. But I do really find that to be a very strong film. It's a very strong film from Spike Lee, who's kind of hit or miss lately.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like it's one of Spike Lee's best films, but we'll talk more about Malcolm X before the show is over. Steven, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is very much kind of ingrained in my childhood a little bit. You know, it's something that came out as I was probably like around middle school, and it was a movie I watched over and over again, and that's Remember the Titans. I am a sports movie fan. I don't like football that much in general. Like, I don't watch football, but I do like a good football movie. And this is maybe my favorite. He's one of the most, his Coach Boone is one of the most iconic coaches in any sports movie. Like, and we know Denzel, he knows how to do a monologue. And what do coaches do in movies? Do inspirational speeches. So who's going to do it better than Denzel? As a couple monologues in this movie that you love it. The Gettysburg scene. Just any inspirational thing he had to say, and then there were some great funny lines. Where he was, he's having to deal with the clashing of the white and the blacks on the team, and he's got to find a way to do it, but do it in a way that's not aggressive. He's got to be smart about it. So he uses humor sometimes, or it's just a very, and it goes beyond just being the coach. He's also, of course, dealing with the racism. Him and his family are in danger at points. It's like, it's a very well-rounded character, more well-rounded than a lot of coach characters that you see in other sports movies. But it's just, and it's a movie I watched so many times. In middle school, they put it on repeat. Like if we weren't doing anything, they put it on TV. We watched Remember the Titans. Yeah, and it's a great, fun football movie. And yes, Ryan Gosling, he dances in the movie.
Well,
foreshadowing.
Yeah,
I think anybody on the Mickey Mouse Club, they can sing, they can dance, they can act. Those guys are some talented people. All right, Andrew. Wait, not Andrew. It's my turn.
Yeah, your turn.
Myself.
Billy.
I'm skipping me. So I got number 3 on my list. I mean, all right. A lot of people would question the choice of my number 3 because it's really not Denzel Washington's film. It's Tom Hanks' film. But I think though, without Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks doesn't give the performance he gives. And I think they go mano a mano, head to head against each other. And Philadelphia is a story about Andrew Beckett, who is a lawyer who is gay, and his boyfriend's played by Antonio Banderas, and he ends up getting AIDS, and he gets fired from his law firm because his bosses think he's got AIDS, which he's got AIDS, and he needs a lawyer to help him. And the scenes where Denzel's trying to learn about AIDS and learn about what's going on in Andrew Beckett's life, those scenes are Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, arguably 2 of the best actors alive today. And they are just some of the most powerful scenes in any movie, let alone Philadelphia. And Joe Miller, Denzel plays Joe Miller, and he is fantastic in this film. And I had to put it, not only was it the film great, Tom Hanks, but Denzel was great as well. And so that's why I had to put Philadelphia. And some people would argue, oh, it's not Denzel's film. But it really is. Without Denzel, you don't have Tom Hanks winning his second Oscar. In Philadelphia, it doesn't win Best Picture or whatever. So I think Denzel Washington as Joe Miller in this film is us. We're the character of Joe Miller. We're the ones out there. It's like, we don't know. We're learning about AIDS with Joe Miller. And don't touch this, and you can't drink out of a cup, and all this kind of stuff. That's us. So the audience is Joe Miller. We're Joe Miller, the Denzel Washington character, and I think they really do a great job of explaining that in the film. And that's why I have Joe Miller from Philadelphia as my number 3 on my top 5 Denzel Washington performances. All right, we're gonna go into honorable mentions. I got a whole bunch of them here. But we'll start with Andrew.
I have a few myself, Dan. Let me just look. American Gangster by Ridley Scott, I think, is underrated. He Got Game, which is another Spike Lee film. I'll say this: Unstoppable is kind of a fun movie. It is exactly what you would assume it is. It's a train chase movie where there's a train and you got to stop it. But Denzel is typically awesome Denzel in it. He's kind of like a hero, like he typically always is. What else do I have? The Inside Man, which is another Spike Lee film, which he's also in. It's really, really good. Some other ones here. I'll say this: Man on Fire, which I believe is another Tony Scott film, is really, really good as well. That is with Dakota Fanning, who was kind of a young, up-and-coming actress at the time, who's kind of disappeared, unfortunately. But he's also really good in that film where he plays kind of a a um a bodyguard who ends up having to go on a vengeance spree, which is really cool. And I'll also say The Equalizer, which came out 2 years ago, which I believe was done by Antoine Fuqua, where Denzel's still proving that he can be a badass. Um, it was definitely a good action film.
Steven, you got some honorable mentions?
I will say I think we're doing this one number too early because we haven't done number 2 yet. But
yeah, I got something else in planned for between.
I'm glad you told us, Dan.
Damn, Dan.
That doesn't really change the fact that I don't like to give away too many of my cards before I say the ones I do. But like Magnificent Seven came out this year. That's another pretty good, fun movie from him. As Andrew said, The Equalizer is a really fun one. I like. Here's a couple ones you might not know about. The Pelican Brief is one where he plays I think a lawyer too, if I'm not mistaken. He's a lawyer in that film. That's another one that's kind of like Courage Under Fire is another one that is a very underrated one that he did way back in the day. And Denzel, you could almost just list his whole filmography and just as your honorable mentions. I mean, it's like there's rarely a movie that you don't enjoy to an extent from him. So it's, an Inside Man is probably my favorite of the Spike Lee, him with Spike Lee, because I'm not a huge Spike Lee fan, but I do like Inside Man. So.
No, I got a bunch here. And I'm sure someone's gonna have this on the list. It was number 6 on my list, and that's what if we did a top 10. I'd be talking about, but we don't have all night to do a top 10 list. So, American Gangster. Oh God, phenomenal film. Magnificent Seven. Steven said that. Man on Fire. Andrew said that. Andrew said He Got Game. Steven said The Pelican Brief. I'm sure before this is over, someone's going to say Flight. We're talking off camera about The Book of Eli. Oh, man, what a great film it is. I mean, underrated Denzel Washington film, really underrated. So I have a feeling someone's going to have Flight or American Gangster or both before this is all over. That's my sneaking suspicion. All right, Andrew, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Steven's number 5, I believe, which is Glory. And that is directed by Edward Zwick, came out in 1989. And as Steven said, it is the film that he won his first Oscar for, I think, Best Supporting Actor. And like Steven said, he has a great one-tear cry in the film. But I think it's a really, really good film. I recently rewatched it, and it holds up. It's another one I saw that they showed in high school history classes when you're covering the American Revolution. It's about the first all African American militia, if you will, and its regiment. And it's a really good film. Like Steven said, Matthew Broderick is an interesting casting choice, specifically at that time where he was mostly known for comedy. I mean, this is coming, 5 years after he was in Ferris Bueller? I don't think he's really ever gone into dramatic acting too much in his career. This may have been one of the only true instances, and it is noticeable. He is noticeable. He tries, though, and he's not bad. He's not bad. I still think it's a great film.
Sorry to interrupt, Andrew. The other thing was that people complain about the fact that the movie's supposed to be about the black soldiers, but he gets a lot of his character gets too much of a shine in the movie.
Yeah, it's almost about his relationship with the black soldiers. Yeah, you are right. I'll say this though: the ending is still very, very powerful, and I think the film is very, very overall well done. Edward Zwick is kind of an underrated director. Check out Last Samurai if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's based on the Civil War, not the Revolution. Just to correct you there, Andrew. But yeah, Glory. Wow, great film. Definitely would probably be in my top 10 Denzel Washington films if I did a top 10 list instead of a top whatever. Maybe 10 or 11. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. So many. God, I said before, this is such a hard top 5 to do. I mean, we could just go on for hours talking about Denzel Washington films, and we just don't have hours. We'll be talking into a different year if we had it that way. Yeah, my number 2 is.
What about me?
Oh wait, and Steven. God, man, I'm flustered today. Steven.
That week he missed just screwed Dan up.
Yeah.
That's the second time this has happened.
Changing names, skipping people.
Chomping at the bit here, Steven. I'm chomping at the bit, I guess.
I know. Well, my number 2 is one we've kind of alluded to a little bit, and that's Man on Fire. This is my favorite Tony Scott. Well, it's not. It's not my favorite. It's up there. This film, I think it's one of his best characters. I really love the character. What's his name? Creasy. That's what his name is. But yeah, it's kind of the introduction to Dakota Fanning a little bit. I think this and then War of the Worlds came out, and then she jumped on the scene. But I just really love his character. He's this guy that's obviously a tortured man, has an alcohol problem, and he needs work, and he starts looking after this little girl as this bodyguard, and they're living in Mexico, which is a very high attempt of abductions of kids and things like that. And it's a very interesting film. It's a perspective we've seen movies like that in Mexico a little bit, but I liked the characters, and I really liked great character, great fun action. I mean, he's badass. He's Denzel. I mean, Man on Fire is he's on fire in that movie. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely Man on Fire would be on my top 10 list if we were doing that. All right, now it's my turn. Steven already talked about it. Training Day, I got it at number 2. And I think, I want to allude to something what Steven said about Denzel winning the Oscar for playing his name of his character is Alonzo Harris. And of course, he's got Ethan Hawke in here. And it's from Antoine Fuqua, which the last couple of years he's been working with a lot with The Equalizer and The Magnificent Seven. It's his new kind of director that he's working with a lot. Tony Scott was there for a while there. And Spike Lee, now he's doing Antoine Fuqua. I think the reason why he wins an Oscar for this, and it's not taking away from The Hurricane or Remember the Titans or Malcolm X or any of those films, is because you don't see this coming. You don't see him turning evil in the end of this film. And he was so believable as this like charismatic kind of detective in this, and all of a sudden he's the bad guy by the end of the movie. He's evil. And that's, I think, the reason why he won the Oscar, because we have never seen Denzel do this before. Yeah, he was Malcolm X, but he didn't consider himself evil as Malcolm X. He's an evil guy. He'll do whatever it takes to get things the way he wants in Training Day. And yeah, is it a career Oscar for him? Probably. Yeah, it's a career Oscar. I mean, he had a decade that capped off, Training Day capped off a decade that was just like unbelievable for Denzel Washington. I mean, arguably with like Russell Crowe or Samuel L. Jackson, probably two of the three best actors of the decade. Tom Hanks won 2 Oscars that decade, so maybe he was in there too. But yeah, Training Day, gritty crime noir kind of thing with detective police. And David Ayer, that's his kind of, remember when we do End of Watch he did. This is the kind of thing that David Ayer has become famous for, these kinds of films. And
Street Kings.
I mean, yeah, I this is the kind of film I like. I love kind of cops and nasty, crooked cops and stuff like that. And Denzel plays probably one of the crookedest cops you ever want to meet in a film, and that's why he won the Oscar for it. And they don't always give the Oscars for playing bad guys, but once in a while, Anthony Hopkins, Denzel Washington, they'll give the bad guy the statue. And so that's why I have Training Day at number 2. I just thought there was one more performance of his that was better. So, all right. I alluded to it earlier. Usually we do this between 4 and 3. but because we talked about fences, we're going to talk about this now. What was the very first film that you can remember that you saw Denzel Washington in? Starting with Andrew.
Hold on there, Dan. Yeah, you jumped us. We don't. I have to scroll. I have to scroll through his filmography.
Well, I'll go ahead.
Go to have Steven go. Yeah.
It was Remember the Titans. I mean, that's the one that stands out, as the one that I kind of like. I saw him and it was like, that dude's awesome. There could have been a movie I saw before, maybe, I don't know, but that's the one that really stands out. And it's a movie I continue to watch today. It's just a very good sports movie, good family movie, teaches a lot of good lessons. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to piggyback off of Steven because I was just looking and I'm trying to remember what I would have watched that would have been Denzel Washington related when I was a child. And if not much, he didn't do kids movies, really never done. Remember the Titans is kind of his one true all ages film. He had done just more serious work all throughout his career. So it'd have to be Remember the Titans. I watched that, like Steven said, a lot. I'm glad I'm able to talk about it now. They showed it in school a few times. I'd seen it way before they showed it in school. They were late on that. But I remember seeing it in theaters, I believe. It was that good of a film. Like guys have already said, it's about, racial tension, racial issues in the early 1970s with the integration of the schools and all that kind of stuff. And it's really an interesting, almost historical piece because I think it's based on a true story. If it's not, it's at least based on real situations somewhere along the line.
And it's Disney, so
yeah,
that's why it's an all ages film. And they really, they get a lot of credit for Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar and their animation, and now they're turning their animated movies into live. But they have killed it over the years with sports movies. And this year, with Queen of Katwe, they killed it with Queen of Katwe. And so they've really done a nice job with their sports movies going back all the way back to years ago, with the Mighty Ducks and so many different sports movies that they do. Good, feel-good sports movie. Remember the Titans was one of their earlier ones.
Is it Cool Runnings? Is Cool Runnings a Disney movie?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they do so many. The Rookie.
What's the one that came out? Wasn't it a couple years ago? McFarlane USA. I heard that was pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I saw it. It's a good movie. It came out in February, so that's like the toilet bowl movie season. But McFarlane USA, and there's another guy who does a lot of sports movies is Kevin Costner, and he's good in all of them. McFarlane, no different. But $1 Million Arm. There's so many Disney sports movies over the years. They're the one. It seems like they're like the king of the sports movie now. But the king of everything. The mouse rules. But whatever. That's another whole subject. Mine is I want to talk about this film, a little known film that a lot of people haven't seen, and it's a really good film. It's called A Soldier's Story. And Denzel is this guy that has to investigate the death of this drill sergeant. And probably, I would say Army Lee Ermey and then this guy are like the two nastiest drill sergeants you ever want to see on screen. And I guess, Vince Vaughn is really good as the drill sergeant or whatever you call it in Hacksaw Ridge. But he has to investigate the murder of this drill sergeant. Everybody hated this guy. This is the very first film I saw with Denzel, and I'm like, wow, this guy has got a career ahead of me. And I saw it in the 80s. So, I always do this. I'm a little older than other people, so I see films a little bit before other people have a lot of times. And I recommend people check it out, A Soldier's Story. It's a really good film, and you could tell that Denzel is going to have a great career after this film. It's not a well-known film, but it's a good one. All right, so now we're going to go on to number ones. Andrew's been chomping at the bit here. He can't wait to get to his number one. What's your number one, Andrew?
My number one, you guys have already mentioned it, and that is Training Day. Specifically because it's I find it immensely rewatchable. I don't know what that says about me, but I really, really enjoyed the film. Like Dan said, it's very dark, it's very gritty, it's very dirty. It's about corrupt cops and uh, like like drug dealing and all kinds of stuff. And Ethan Hawke is kind of like this rookie cop who's just thrown into the fire essentially, with Denzel Washington's character. And like Dan said, it's one of the first times and really one of the few only times where Denzel plays a bad guy, a really bad guy. And but we're led to believe that he's supposed to be the protagonist, but he's really the antagonist throughout the whole movie. It's a really interesting perspective for him as an actor. Really kind of shows his range. He can both be good and bad, and both do it at a very, very high level and Oscar worthy level. And it's a great. I find it to be a great film. David Ayer has this penchant for writing these dirty cop movies. He really, really likes Dirty Harry. For those of you at home who have seen Dirty Harry, watch the special features. David Ayer shows up all the time talking about Dirty Harry. So he kind of just wanted to make his own Dirty Harry movie, and that's kind of almost what this is. He's on that same level of dirty cop as Dirty Harry was. Probably a little bit more because it's modern time. You have to heighten it up a little bit more. But I think it's a great performance by him, and it's my favorite.
Yeah, well, obviously, everybody on the panel loves Training Day. All right, Steven, what's your number one?
Well, my number one, and Andrew already knows probably what it is because I told him. And I'm glad he watched it, enjoyed it enough to put it on his list, and that is 1995's Crimson Tide, directed by Tony Scott. And like I said before, I was going to say that Man on Fire was my favorite Tony Scott Denzel, but it's not. It's this one. It's when I first saw this movie, man, I was blown away. Like the performances, Gene Hackman by himself is powerful, but then throw Denzel in there, stuck on a plane under the water, and then having to like decide whether to shoot off a nuclear bomb at Russia. Like, it's just insane. It sounds insane. Like, and it is. And if you didn't know this, Tarantino threw some rewrite. He did a little bit of rewrites on this movie and spiked up some dialogue. Probably the stuff with the Fantastic Four stuff. The scene, if you know what I'm talking about, where he's like, they're arguing, somebody gets in on a fight about comic books, and that was probably Tarantino. But yeah, it's just a super intense movie. There's a great supporting cast. James Gandolfini's in there. Viggo Mortensen, my man, he's in there. It's just a lot of great acting, a lot of great tension, well directed. It's just an all around just awesome movie, and it is my favorite submarine movie. Das Boot is up there, but it's my favorite personally. But yeah, Crimson Tide, man, I might watch it right after this.
I'm shocked that neither one of you had American Gangster or Flight. That's shocking to me.
Well, see, Flight for me, like when it came out, to me it was just a Denzel show, and the movie itself kind of falls. I don't think the movie's that great. It's okay, but it was just a Denzel show. So
that's fine, no problem. I was just curious about that. All right, my number one is a film that I think Andrew already had, Malcolm X. I think this is the peak of Denzel Washington's career. This is the role that he really could sink his teeth into, and he could really shine as a character. I feel like Spike Lee, this is Spike Lee's second or third. It's in there, the top three, I think, Spike Lee films of all time, I would say. But I mean, I think this is the peak for these two. They really know how to work together. And he knew he wanted Denzel for this role. And I mean, you're right. Martin Luther King is kind of the good side of the civil rights activist kind of thing. And Denzel as Malcolm X is kind of like the bad side of it. He didn't like the goody two shoes kind of Martin Luther King stuff. He wanted to be more proactive. He wanted to kind of make these people realize what they're doing is wrong, and kind of force some of these issues down to some people's throats. And I mean, we've seen Malcolm X portrayed by other actors. I think Mario Peebles and some different people have performed Malcolm X and portrayed Malcolm X in movies. But I think the best portrayal, and I think this is the one that really should have won Denzel the Oscar. I mean, this is the best role of his career, in my opinion. And that's why I believe that the Training Day Oscar is like a career kind of Oscar type of thing. Well, we didn't give it to him for Malcolm X. We got to give it to him for this, even though he was really good in Training. It's like Paul Newman winning an Oscar for The Color of Money when he was 100 times better in The Hustler. But you're going to give it to him for playing the same character in The Color of Money? Come on, it's a career Oscar for Paul Newman. Which, I mean, The Verdict. Oh God, was he phenomenal in The Verdict? I mean, God Almighty, he was unbelievable in that. But I'm going off here on Paul Newman here. Talking about Denzel, he just is great in this. I mean, Angela Bassett's in there. What else do I got here? Muslims. All this kind of stuff. Basically, Andrew already said some of this stuff, so I don't want to retread what Andrew already said. But yeah, I feel like Malcolm X is the best acting performance of Denzel's career. So that's just my opinion, and it's my list. So there you go. Talking about next week, we're going to do 2 shows starting next week, all through January. We're going to culminate with our best films of 2016. We've been talking about this for months, Stephen and Andrew and I. So this is going to be our top 5 extravaganza month. The month of January, you're going to get a lot of us. So I hope you're not sick of us, because you're going to get a lot of us starting next week. Not that you don't already get a lot of Stephen. He's everywhere. And Andrew's starting to be everywhere with his reviews and everything. Go check out Andrew's channel with his reviews. So next week is going to be Mark Wahlberg. I just feel like there's enough body of work for us to do a Mark Wahlberg show next week. Patriots Day comes out, and we're going to do top 5 animated films of 2016 next week. So we'll get a parent on the show who has a child who may have a vested interest in talking about animated films instead of a couple 3 creepy old guys going to animated films with the trench coat. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking around. I love animated films. That's why we're going to do our top 5 animated show next week. So for Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, and find my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And Steven, when he's not in an animated film?
Okay. It's me, Billy. You can find me on Facebook at Billy Madison or Stephen Billings. You can find the channel I run on Film Club Central on YouTube. We do a lot of shows. We do Not Another Geek podcast, Film Club movie show, Traumateries, commentaries, rapid reactions, movie reviews, whole bunch of stuff. Go check it out.
Yeah. And then every week after next week, we'll be doing top 5s based on different subjects. Comedies, horror, worst films of the year, best films of the year, so forth, stuff like that. And so we'll just get different panelists. That's why he was joking around about saying Billy Mack, because we were supposed to have Billy, our friend Billy Pollahan was supposed to be on here, but oh well, he didn't show up. So, all right, everybody, see you next week. Happy New Year.
Toodaloo.